When you smell a truly high-end perfume, you're getting a hit of glamour, of artistry. But behind some of the most famous scents in the world, there's this incredibly complex story. And it doesn't start in some fancy lab in Paris. It starts on a remote hillside in Haiti. It's a story that really makes you think about the true price of luxury. So let's get into it.
And yeah, the whole story really kicks off right here. This quote from Rosemarie Adona, a vetiver farmer, just perfectly captures the huge disconnect that defined this industry for decades. You have this massive value being created at one end of the chain, and just a tiny, tiny fraction of it ever making its way back to the people at the very beginning.
The journey from that earthy root to a luxury fragrance, well, it starts in places just like this distillery in Le Case. This is where the raw roots, harvested by farmers like Rosemarie, get steamed and processed into this precious amber-colored oil. It's really the first industrial step in a global supply chain that's worth billions of dollars. So what exactly is this plant that's so important? Well, people have called it Haiti's supercrop, and honestly, for a lot of very good reasons. It's called vetiver, and it's a type of tropical grass with these unbelievably deep roots. That's where the magic is, in the roots. They produce an essential oil that gives you that rich, woody, low note. The foundational scent that lasts, in perfumes from huge brands like Chanel, Dior, and Estee Lauder. What's so amazing about vetiver is how it serves two completely different worlds. For the perfume industry, its molecule is heavy, which just means the scent sticks around longer on your skin. But for Haiti, its incredible root system is a lifesaver. It literally anchors the soil on these hillsides that are prone to erosion. And for the farmers, it's kind of a miracle plant. It grows without any irrigation or fertilizer. And check this number out, 50%. That's how important Haiti is to the perfume world. The country produces about half of the entire world's supply of vetiver. That makes this one small nation absolutely critical to the entire global fragrance industry. But here's the thing. For decades, being that critical didn't mean much for the farmers themselves. They were basically trapped in a system where they earned just enough to get by, while all the real profits from this incredibly valuable resource were scooped up by middlemen and, at different times, state monopolies. But then something happened. A terrible tragedy, actually, that would unexpectedly force the whole industry to take a hard look in the mirror and become a real catalyst for change. Of course, that event was the catastrophic 2010 earthquake. In the wake of all that devastation, major perfume companies were pretty much forced to look beyond just getting their raw materials. They had to start re-examining the human and social impact of their entire supply chain in Haiti. And this wasn't just pressure from the outside. This quote from Catherine Perrault shows that there was this growing awareness inside the industry, too. It was like an admission, a recognition that the way they sourced their ingredients was having a negative impact, and that they had a real responsibility to do something about it. So, armed with this new sense of responsibility, the industry started to build a whole new model. You could call it a fair trade fix, designed to completely rewrite the rules of the game for Haitian vetiver. This new system, which companies like Firmenich and Givaudan really pioneered, was built on four key pillars. First, help farmers organize into cooperatives so they have more bargaining power. Then, guarantee them a minimum price for their harvest. Third, offer bonuses or premiums for using the best, most sustainable practices. And finally, and this is so crucial, start investing profits directly back into the local communities. And look, the commitment was real. We're not talking about pocket change. The Swiss company Firmenich, for example, put $1 million into its sustainable vetiver program in Haiti. This wasn't just some PR move. It was a serious financial investment in actually changing the system. So what does an investment like that actually do on the ground? Well, it builds a school for 500 kids in the really remote village of Debouchette, a school that even has a library. It means digging a well so people have access to clean drinking water. These are real, tangible, life-changing results. And of course, this had a huge impact on the farmers themselves. The ones who joined these new cooperatives saw their incomes go up by as much as 30%. Finally, more of the value they were creating was actually making its way into their own pockets.
But, it's never that simple, is it? As with any big change, this story isn't some simple fairy tale. The progress is absolutely real, but some really deep-seated challenges are still there, making this very much an unfinished story.
This quote from Scott Freeman really gets to the heart of the problem. For farmers who are in such a tough economic spot, The vetiver roots in the ground, they're like an emergency savings account. So when a crisis hits, a medical bill, a funeral, they're often forced to harvest those roots prematurely, even if it means they'll get a lower price for them. And this situation creates two totally different realities on the ground. A cooperative member can now make up to $10 a day, which is a huge improvement. But for farmers who are outside that system, their wages are still down closer to $6 a day, which is barely enough to get by. And this chart just shows you the scale of the work that's left to do. While this cooperative model is growing, and that's great, it still only accounts for about 40% of production. That means the majority of vetiver, 60%, is still harvested outside of this new, more fair system. And that brings us right back to where we started, to the voice of Rosemarie Adona. Her words are just this powerful, sobering reminder that even with all the progress, the daily struggle to survive is still so real. You can't eat the root you're digging up for luxury goods, and what you earn from it often still isn't enough. So, this whole story leaves us with a really critical question, right? When we buy a product we love, what are we actually paying for? The story of Haitian vetiver shows us that positive change is absolutely possible, but it also forces us to look beyond the price tag and to ask about the hidden costs and the complex human stories behind the things we value.